Good evening. My name is Ashley Johnson, and I am here with tonight's presenter, Brian Watkins, and he's going to lead us on what Ted Lasso should teach you about your career. So I'm very excited to hear about this from Brian. Brian is the president and the founder of BTOM Consulting, a firm that provides coaching and training focused on making great managers. He speaks on a number of management topics at events throughout the Midwest. Brian is originally from Wisconsin, but has lived in Buffalo Grove for 25 years with his wife, 2 daughters, and a cat. What's the cat's name, Brian?
The cat's name is Ash.
Oh, nice. Cool. Okay, well, with that, I'll hand it over to you. I'll go silent. I'm here, so if you have questions, folks, please put them in the chat, and I will be sure to interrupt Brian, and he has said that he would like to answer them. Yep. And yeah, if you have any trouble, I'm just right behind the curtain.
All right. So Ashley, you can't see my presentation, correct?
I can see your presentation. Yep.
Perfect. So thank you all for joining me. I appreciate having you here today. So our topic, what does Ted Lasso teach you about your career? Ted Lasso, I am not a soccer fan. I am not necessarily a Jason Sudeikis fan, but everyone told me I should watch this show. And so I finally did, and I realized I enjoyed it. It's entertaining. It's engaging. It's a lot of fun. But as I was watching it, I was realizing there's a lot of great lessons in life, but particularly for the business career. And since that's kind of what I deal with, I like to talk about that. So I kind of put together this little presentation about these elements. Now, one of the funny things is, even though I know these elements and I've kind of noticed these, I don't necessarily practice on them as well. It's kind of a great opportunity for me to always refresh myself. And you'll see, I'll ask questions about how we can use this in our careers for all of these different points that I'm going to cover. If you've seen the show, I'll set up the scene and how what I'm talking about, you'll be able to follow along. If you haven't, I promise to not put in any spoilers, so you can go and watch it, but you'll still be able to understand what we're covering. So let's get started. So the first one, so the premise of the show is very simple. It's a college football coach from Wichita gets hired to run a soccer club in England in the Premier League. So very sitcom-y thing, right? This would never happen in real life. But it's where this, he's going from, a college to a pro team. He's going from a sport he coached at for a long time to a sport he doesn't know. He's going to a whole new country with all new culture and everything. So obviously you could see where it would be rife for all kinds of comedy type of situations. But one of the things when you look at it, you're like, all right, how does a football coach become a soccer coach? That's not going to work. But one of the things he realizes, Ted Lasso realizes, it's about people. It's not always about being the expert, right? There are lots of times in our career where someone will say, well, you can't do that job, or you can't do that role because you don't have experience in X, whether that be an industry, a particular skill or whatever. But a lot of times it's not necessarily about the expertise, right? It's about the people skills. It's about the general skills. Now, obviously, if you're having surgery, you want a doctor who knows what he's doing, who's done it before. But that's not necessarily the case for a lot of these things. So, he knows that he's not going there to be the soccer expert. He's not going there to teach them something new. He's going, and what he can bring is his expertise with people, his ability to get the most out of them, to connect with them. So as you're kind of doing this in your career, think about, expertise is necessary at times. But are there times where you're letting expertise get in the way of relating to people? Maybe you're not trying out for a company. You're going, oh, well, I've been in banking my whole life. What would I know about insurance? Right? But in a lot of these cases, these skills transfer and carry over. So I'm in learning and development, corporate learning and development with adult education. I can go to a lot of different businesses as someone who knows that skill. I don't need to know about cars or insurance or banking or anything. They have people who do that. So he knows that. And it's kind of neat to see, you can see he doesn't go in trying to be an expert. In fact, he admits it all the time. He's like, I don't know. You know, he goes to the referee when he complains, he goes, how can that be offsides? And the ref doesn't say anything. He's like, no, seriously, I don't understand the rule. Right? He's very clear about that. So, but he's good with people. So the second one is related to that. And its relationship power is greater than positional power. So the character you see there and what looks like from that picture is a blue garbage can, but it's actually an ice bath. That's Roy Kent. He's the aging, soccer player. He's kind of grumpy and gruff and uses a lot of language that Ashley doesn't want me to use in this presentation. And he's just that way, but he's a great character. And in the first episode, he goes in and he just basically insults Ted Lasso. Barely has met him. Guy's barely been in the country 24 hours. And already this guy comes in and just basically blasts him. Now, most managers I know, most leaders I know would say, well, that's too bad. I'm leading the club. I'm in charge now. Get on board type of thing. But Ted just kind of goes, okay, well, thanks for sharing. Right? Kind of brushes it off. He realizes that, his positional power, while he has it and he could use it, it's not his best way of connecting. He's going to build relationships with them, and he knows that takes time. So when, he's getting these insults, he just kind of goes, okay. Right. And it's kind of funny because when the player Roy Kent leaves the office, he turns to the other coach. It's like, boy, is he going to be mad when we turn him around? Right? Very confident in himself because he knows he can build those relationships over time. If he starts going in and going, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm this and that, people aren't going to listen to him because they'll be like, what do you know? Right? So he's playing that long game, if you will. He's thinking beyond that. So thinking about your career, do you get results because of the relationships you've built with people or because of your position, whether you're at a leadership position or not? Right? There's all kinds of time where our position gives us certain authority to do something. And, are you using that, positional power, or are you using the relationships you built? I will tell you, as someone who's worked with managers and studied management and leadership techniques for years now, the people who follow that positional power don't have followers. They have people who tolerate them. They have people who put up with them. The people who build relationships, those are the ones you want to work for. When they leave, you want to follow them, right? When they do something, you want to help them, right? So how do we focus on building these relationships and not worry about positions and power? That's a key lesson in this whole thing, is how he builds relationships with everyone, right? And you see it from the people on the team, the players, the staff, his boss, the owner of the club, the citizenry, the town people who, soccer fans are just as loyal or more loyal and rabid than fans in America. So when they see this guy coming in who they think is going to do well, they're not happy with him. And he's just like, you know what? I'm going to do what I can and win you over. He uses that relationship power phenomenally throughout the entire series. There's example after example, but you could definitely see it. Number 3 is define your version of success. So one of the things you hear repeatedly throughout the series is, Ted Lasso doesn't worry about winning and losing. Now, you can tell he likes winning and being competitive, and winning is very important to him. But that's not the point. The point is to play well, to do your best. If you can read the graphic there, it says ties and no playoffs. It's kind of a running gag through the whole thing. He can't understand ties. He hates ties. He thinks ties are the worst thing in the world, which is ironic for someone who doesn't care about winning and losing. But a tie? No, that's not good. There's some subtle things in the show too that talk about this. In the first episode, when he's decorating his office, one of the things he puts up is a picture on the wall. And if you know what it is, you recognize it instantly. It is from John Wooden, and it's his pyramid of success. right? So John Wooden, great basketball coach from the 60s and 70s at UCLA, won like 10 championships in a row or something like that. He has this pyramid. And John Wooden was very clear. He always used to say, I don't care about winning or losing. If we play the best we can, we will win what we're supposed to, and we will lose what we're supposed to. That's not the point. The point is that we do the best we can. So you can see from that picture he hangs up that that's part of it. There's another part later in the series where Roy Kent, that older player, is kind of coming to terms with various things. And there's a scene where he's just staring and looking at that pyramid. And he doesn't really talk about it, doesn't say anything about it, but you can tell that's one of the inflection points where he's starting to come around to the coach. Oh, maybe this guy's got something here, right? One of those little things that if you didn't know what it is, you just think he's staring at it. But when you know what it is, it becomes important. So, in terms of our careers, how clear on what are you on what you consider success? And do others know your definition? Right? So is success for you becoming CEO? Is success for you getting a raise? Is success for you simply going in and doing your best work? Whatever it is, and we all have a different definition of success. What is it for you? Have you really thought about that? And I will tell you, when you do this from a career standpoint, it changes over time, right? When I was starting out and I was younger, it was about, I want promotions. I want this. I want that. I want to be a manager. I want to be director. I want to be this. And, I never thought about starting my own consulting. That was never in the cards, right? As I got older, though, it changed, and I know a lot of people who go, I wanted to be a manager, and then I became a manager, and I realized, well, how horrible it is. Everybody comes to you with their problems. You got to solve it. And other people go, man, I love being a manager. Never thought I would, but I do. But that definition changes for us. But we have to be aware of it. So we have to have that self-reflection. We also have to communicate it to others, right? Hey, say to your boss, I really want that promotion, or I want to get better at this. I don't want to be a manager, but I want to become the best X I can be, right? So you have to define it for yourself and then go out and tell people what that definition is. And everybody's is going to be different. It's not about the scoreboard and winning and losing. Fix the water pressure. So that's kind of a little simpler way of getting into it, of talking about doing things that you say you're going to do. So in the first episode, again, he says to the players when he meets them, hey, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And somebody kind of yells, we don't even know who, says, well, you could fix the water pressure. And he's like, great, I will do that. We never actually hear whether we assume he got that fixed, because we don't hear any more complaints about it. But what he knew was every time he said he would do something and he did it, it built up respect, it built up trust, it built that relationship. If you've ever read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about the emotional bank account. Every time you do what you say you're going to do, it's like a deposit. Every time you don't, it's like a withdrawal. And if you make enough deposits and you have to make a withdrawal once in a while, you're still okay. But if all you do is make withdrawals, eventually you go bankrupt. Okay. It's what I refer to, and you see it in the question there. What is your say to do ratio? Right. So if you say you will do something, how many times do you actually do that? Now, we would love that to be a 1-to-1 ratio. Every time I say it, I get it done. We're humans. That's not always possible, right? But if you can keep that close to 1-to-1, right, you start to build up that account. So one of the things you do is do these little things. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Because every time you do it, it's not just getting that task done. It's letting that other person know, hey, I can trust when they say this. I don't have to worry about it. This person is good with their word. Okay. And that helps in so many ways in your career. Those people you can trust makes your career go faster and usually gives you higher success rates. So be thinking about that all the time. What's your say to do ratio? And your say to do ratio is on everything. You don't go, well, if it's important, I do it. But all the other stuff I don't worry about. If I don't do it, I don't do it. No. Because what's important to you may not be important to them. Or what you don't think is important to them. So your say to do ratio has to be very concerned with the little things as well as the big things. All right. Now, learn people's names is 0.5. So the character you see next to Ted Lasso there is Nate. Nate at the beginning is the manager, which means he's the guy who makes sure the towels are clean and folded, gives everyone their water. It's very clear. It's never really said to us, but it's very clear in the first couple episodes that prior to Ted getting there, Nate was invisible. People didn't care about him. People treated him poorly. He was just that underling who did all that stuff, and we didn't care. We didn't respect him very much. In that first episode, Nate meets him, Coach meets him and says, what's your name? And the guy says, Nate. And later in the episode, he says, hey, Nate, tell me about so-and-so. And Nate verbally says out loud, he remembered my name, right? It was obvious Nate had never had that before. He was that guy, right? The only time someone paid attention to probably is when they yelled at him because the water wasn't cold enough or whatever, right? But Lasso knows that's part of the relationship building. So you learn people's names, you learn things about them, right? You try and make that connection. Dale Carnegie, in his famous book from the 1920s, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he says, a person's name is the sweetest sound to them, right? We like to know that people take us seriously as people, not as tools, not as assets, not as a thing, right? And that's what Ted Lasso is doing all the time. He's getting to learn about people. He's doing things. And you don't know when it's going to come in handy, right? But by knowing all these things, you can make connections. You can say, hey, what about this? And what about that? Or, oh, hey, I remember that your kid was starting preschool. How's that going? Right? All those little things build that relationship. It builds trust. It's that deposit in that account. So when you think about your career, how much time do you spend really getting to know the other people, whether you work with them a lot or a little bit, versus pushing your agenda? Okay. There's nothing worse on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, there's nothing worse than that person who goes, oh, I'm connected to so-and-so and I'd like to be connected to you too. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you connect. And the first thing they do is say, hey, I'd like to sell you X. I mean, that's an automatic unfriend, unconnect, whatever. Right. We want people to get to know us as people and not just worry about pushing their agenda. And really the kind of cool thing, that the underlying tone is when you get to know people and you've really built that relationship, you don't have to push your agenda. They will be happy to take it up for you and with you, because that's what relationships do. Oh, you need that? Sure, we can do that. I can take care of that for you, right? So by doing these things like learning people's names and learning about them and treating them as individuals versus your agenda, you actually get further than the person who plots and goes, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this and suck up to this person because they're big and important. None of that works. Just get to know people as people. That's what they want. All right. Coach Beard is my second favorite character. Yes, in the show Ted Lasso is actually my third favorite character. So I've got Roy, the aging player, and Coach Beard is my second favorite. Now, Coach Beard is someone who's been with Ted Lasso a long time. He was with him when he coached football in the United States, right? We don't know how long, but it's clear that they've got a long-term relationship. And the great thing about Coach Beard is he's that sounding board for Coach Lasso, right? He's that guy who makes up for his weaknesses. So you see him learning everything he can about soccer. So he can explain things like Ashley was saying she saw some clips where he was like Ted Lasso was doing a press conference going, well, it's 4 quarters. And they're like, it's 2 halves. And Coach is like, and Coach Beard is trying to teach him these things as they're going, right? So he's that guy who supports him, who kind of makes up for his little weakness there. But he's also the person who can call him out. He's not a yes man. He's not someone who does everything that Coach Lasso wants. Okay. He is there to tell him sometimes, hey, that's not the right thing. Or do you want to do this? Or think about that. All right. He is there to be that person he needs to question him and to compassionately call him out on things. Right. Now, that obviously helps Coach Lasso, because anytime you've got someone who you trust who can do that for you, that's awesome, right? That helps you. It keeps you from making mistakes and it keeps you thinking. But the other great thing is, by that person being there, he's modeling that behavior for everyone else. So all the other people around see how Coach Beard deals with Coach Lasso, and they learn, oh, I can say certain things. I can do certain things. And in fact, that's what Coach Lasso wants. So Coach Beard becomes that fixer of Coach Lasso's, weak spots. He becomes that person who can, tell him what he needs to hear, even if he doesn't want to hear it. And he becomes that model for everyone else, right? So think about your career. Who is your Coach Beard? Who is that person who is understanding of you, who knows you and can be honest with you and can help you know when you need help? You don't necessarily have to ask for it. They know what they're supposed to do because they're working with you, can call you out and can do those things, and can, model for other people. Everyone wants that Coach Beard in their life. And it could be one person, it could be two or three, but you see repeatedly how he plays that role. There's one part in the episode where Ted Lasso does something that Coach Beard and everyone else didn't want him to do, right? And Coach Beard kind of gives him the cold shoulder, right? Not in a mean way, not in a harsh way, not in anything, but Coach Lasso recognized it. He was like, so that's what we're doing today, huh? And there's a trust and there's a relationship built there, so that when he hears this from Coach Beard, he goes, oh, okay, I got it. And it's that message that comes through to him. All right. So find your Coach Beard. Who's that person? And again, it probably is more than one, but you want that person who can be compassionate, understanding, and a great role model for other people. All right. So we've got number 7, holding people accountable. So the character you see there is Jamie Tart. Jamie Tart is the young, talented, cocky player, right? He is the best player on the team, and he knows it, and he has no problem telling you that. Where I said Roy was the aging veteran, right? Roy used to be Jamie Tart, right? Now Jamie Tart's come in, and obviously that causes some friction with them, but Jamie Tart is that young gun, right? He's the one who's like, well, you're never going to bench me because I'm Jamie Tart. I'm the best player you've got. And all those rules you have, they apply to everyone else. My guess is somewhere in your career or your life, you've met this person, right? I'm the best. I'm good. I know the boss. I'm the boss's son, whatever it is, right? Somebody that isn't there. But Coach Lasso knows even those people, you give them a little rope, right? You set the expectations, set very clear expectations for them, but you have to hold them accountable and do it in a compassionate way. So there's a scene later where, it's clear Jamie is playing very selfish, and Coach Lasso pulls him out of the game. Now, he doesn't pull him out of the game and start screaming at him or yelling at him or going, get on the bed, anything like that. What we would expect to see a coach when we in the United States to do. He just makes the replacement, doesn't really say anything. Then comes out, and in fact is in the press conference later, and someone's like, so does this mean Jamie's not playing next time? And Lasso's like, no, I expect Jamie to be out there next time. We've just got some things we got to work on, and I thought that was best for the team. He didn't hang him out to dry. His point wasn't to punish him, right? His point was to hold him accountable with compassion, right? Not always easy to do, right? Because we assume compassion and that niceness means giving someone a break. But that's not necessarily it. You can be, hold someone accountable and be compassionate and not give in. still be firm in what you do, right? So he does this, and there's several times where he does it, and there's other times where he has to be held accountable, right? And he accepts it when he has to be held accountable as Coach Lasso. Like one of the players goes, I can't believe you did this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hold on. If I would have done that, yes, I would have deserved all the scoring. The accountability has to go both ways. So, do you set clear expectations for others, meaning they know what's expected of them, and then compassionately hold them accountable? It's not about holding a grudge. It's not about doing anything like that. All right. Number 8, good ideas come from anywhere. So in this picture, first of all, I want to point out there's the little magnets there that they used to draw plays with the players. Of course, Coach Lasso has it in a smiley face because that's very fitting with his personality. Very optimistic, very happy, does all that stuff, right? Kind of corny. But in this episode, they're about to play one of the best teams in the league, right? This team has more talent than them. This team has more wins than them, but they have to win this game. It's important for them from, the standings, right? So he's like, well, I don't know how we're going to win, right? I just don't know how that's going to happen. But finally it dawns on him. He goes, okay, we're going to do trick plays, right? We're going to keep them off guard. We're going to create chaos. And the first thing he does is he pulls the team together and he says, all right, everybody, tell me every trick play you know, right? And they start naming off trick plays and they're writing them down. You can see Coach Beard writing them down. And everybody gets to say, well, we did this one once and this one and there's different names, things. And Coach Lasso even says, well, put the Lasso special on there. I'll tell you what that one is when I'm going to get to it, right? And after he generates all this thing, so it could come from anyone, another coach, the manager, Nate, one of the players, doesn't matter who it is, but he wrote them all down. And then he said, we're going to go out and learn all these plays, right? Because our goal in this game is going to be to create chaos. That's how we're going to win. And they all understand it. But he knows it's not just him. It's not, good ideas come from everywhere. And that's what you want to focus on. Where did those good ideas come from? And, and I should be open to all of them. Now, again, he could have came in and sat down with 3 of the coaches, pulled in the captain and said, all right, the 4 of us got to come up with a bunch of trick plays. But he opened it up to everybody and he let them do it. And what's even funny is during the game, right, he doesn't call the plays. He's on the sideline and we see that there's a certain point of the game where the captain of the team is going to make the call of what play they're going to run. And the captain calls the Lasso special. And Ted Lasso's like, they're running my play. They're running my play. Like he's as giddy, as excited as anyone, right? So he not only suggests everything from everyone, he trusts them to know what to do because they worked on it. They're a team, right? So from your standpoint, from that career standpoint, do you solicit suggestions from everyone? Do you listen to all points of view? Or are you like most of us, and I'm guilty of this at times, where we've got 1 or 2 people we ask, or we go, you know what, I'll run this by this person, but no one else. Or I don't even need anyone's help. I've got all the answers, right? And what we learn is there's lots of good ideas, and you never know where good ideas are going to come from. I will tell you, I never thought a great idea for a presentation would come from a TV show on a streaming service. But it did, right? And you got to be aware. So are you asking everyone, hey, what do you think about this? What are you going to do about that? As we're in this kind of, not as much now, but we're in that hybrid world where people working from home. It was easy to send out a message to everybody. Hey, I've got this problem, people. What do you think? And you could get suggestions from anywhere. That's the great part. Or are we, again, limiting to 1 or 2? I sent an email to 1 person and asked. Right. So get those suggestions from everybody, get feedback from everybody. It will help you in the long run. Be curious, not judgmental. One of the great phrases and lessons from Ted Lasso. So to kind of give you the background, if you haven't seen it. So the owner of the club is a wife who got the club through a divorce with her husband. Her husband was a rich cad, cheated on her, horrible person, but she got the club in the divorce, right? And he is just horrible to her, right? He's not in the series a lot, but when he's there, you just want to smack him, right? Because he's such a jerk. Well, in this scene, he's kind of, being that jerk to her. Ted Lasso kind of comes up. He doesn't like become really, chivalrous or anything, but he's clear he's going to kind of set the tone. And he challenges this guy to a darts match. And he says, you know what? If I win, you don't have to, you have to leave her alone. You got to stay away from her. If you win, I'll let you pick the starting lineup for the team. Right now, this guy thinks, oh, this, silly American, we play darts here all the time in the pub. I've got my own private darts set and da 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 da. So during this, we don't see very much of the game, but then he gets to this point where Ted Lasso goes, what do I need to win? Someone tells him, well, you need 2 triple 20s and a bullseye. And everybody's like, oh, you feel he's not going to win. But he starts to tell the story as he's shooting. And he tells a story about how he couldn't figure out when he was younger, how everybody was judging him. They always underestimated him. And he couldn't figure out why. Till one day he saw this quote, be curious, not judgmental. And he realized that that's what it was. They were judging him. They didn't know anything about him. They weren't asking questions. They weren't trying to get to know him. They were just judging him, and it kind of leads us into his personality. He's very curious. This is why he wants to get to know people. He doesn't want to underestimate you. He wants to really know and understand you. And he shoots and he's getting it. And he actually says, and if you would have been curious, you would have said, hey, Ted, have you played darts much? And I would have said, yes, sir, every Saturday with my father growing up. In other words, he was a good dart player. But he saw this guy with this hillbilly accent who was an American who didn't deserve to be there, and he judged him. Whereas if he was curious, he would have known this, right? And he wouldn't have gotten himself in this position of possibly losing this bet. So the question for you from your career standpoint is, are you curious? Do you ask why, or do you start to comment on why not? Okay. When something happens and something's going on, do you say, well, why is that happening? Or someone does something, well, why'd you do that? Or someone says, I'm thinking about this. Do you just go, no, don't do that? Or do you say, well, why are you thinking that? If you're a manager, right, and you run any size department, why is the greatest question in the world, right? Because you can ask those questions, go, well, why'd you do that? And then it helps you understand, go, oh, that makes sense. But did you think of this? Did you think of that? Toyota was famous in the 80s for coming up with their 5 why system. They would say when there was a problem, they would identify what the problem was. Then they would ask, why did it happen? Well, and then why did that happen? And they would ask it until they got 5 whys, because that usually got them down to the real problem, not the superficial one. So we need to be curious. And that's what he's saying. How curious are you in your career? How much are you asking why as opposed to making a judgment? And your judgment, I'm not saying never make judgments, but make judgments after you've been curious, because that's what's going to get you the great information. All right. No one is bigger than the team, number 10. Okay. As you build a team and as you work with a group of people, and we all work with people, even when we feel very solitary, we're doing something for someone else, usually either a customer, a client, coworker, your boss, your company, whatever it is, your family, right? But what you have to realize is no one person is bigger than the team. You all bring something different. You all do something better, but no one is bigger than the team. In one episode, we kind of saw a little with Jamie Tart, right? He thought he was bigger than the team. I'm Jamie Tart. I'm the star. You need me. And Ted Lasso's point was, we don't, right? As the team, we're only good when we're together, right? And that's where he goes with this. So nobody's bigger than the team. He's not. Coach Beard isn't. None of the players are. The owner isn't. Everybody's part of the team. And you could see in all the little actions he does, if you pay attention, everything he does is to connect everybody, not to call anyone out, not to say someone's bigger or better, to point out everything. All right. Now, this is hard in the business world because we've all been around that person who thinks they're great, right? And sometimes we have to say, but do we let performance mask personality issues? Right? Oh, you know what? And I've had this. I've managed someone who, was really, really good at what he did, but he expected special privileges, right? He didn't do it in a mean way, but he always thought, that rule doesn't apply to me, or I can work around it, or I could do this. And it was hard because you're like, well, I really want to do something to like get this guy in line, but I don't want to lose him. He's too important. Everyone likes him. He's good at what he does. Eventually you realize those people harm the team much more than their performance warrants. All the good they do can't make up for the harm they're doing to the team, right? So he focuses on no one's bigger than the team. It doesn't matter if you're a backup, doesn't matter if you're a starter, doesn't matter if you're the owner. Everybody's in this together. All right. 11, optimism is infectious. Now, Ted Lasso is an optimistic character. Everything he does is positive. It's almost sickeningly so, right? If you watch a show, you're like, man, this guy is not human, because nobody can be that happy and that positive all the time. The player you see kind of with his arms stretched out, that's Danny Rojas. He's from Mexico, and he runs around yelling, football is life, right? Even Coach Lasso looks at him and goes, wow, that guy's really positive, right? But the lesson is, and the coach doesn't tamp him down. Coach lets him be that and encourages it, because optimism is infectious. The Navy SEALs, I learned, I'm not a Navy SEAL, I never went through their training, but I've learned from one of the books or something, a talk, can't remember exactly, but the SEAL said they have a saying that says, calm is contagious. And the idea was, when you're in a horrible situation, a life and death situation, gunfire, building collapse, or bombs, all this stuff, you don't want to panic. And if you're with other SEALs, you don't want them to panic. So you stay calm, because calm is contagious. Optimism is infectious. Negativity is infectious as well, right? All those things, the bad things that we do, the complaining, the this and that, right? That stuff's infectious too. And you find that however you are, you can influence everyone else. We've all had that person at work who, when they come by to talk to us, we're like, because they're just going to complain about so-and-so, or gossip about this person, or do this and that. And we're just like, I don't want to deal with it. They're bringing you down, right? So all those things are infectious. So do you encourage in your career, or are you somebody who drags people down? Because whatever you do, you think it's just you, but you are having a huge influence on a lot of people. Be a goldfish. The player you see there that Coach Lasso's talking to is Sam. And Sam is from Nigeria. And he's a good player, but at the beginning of the series, he's, not doing very well. And he makes a mistake in practice, and he's kind of dragging and doing this. And he calls him over, and Ted Lasso says to me, he goes, you know what the happiest animal on the planet is? And the guy's like, no. And he goes, it's a goldfish. And he's kind of looking at him like, why are you telling me this? And he says, he's happy because he's only got a memory of 10 seconds. When something bad happens to him, he forgets it. So he's happy, right? It's his way of saying, you made a mistake, you didn't do something right, learn from it, move on, forget it, right? And you see this come up repeatedly in the series. Here, everybody's kind of caught this catchphrase. When something happens, be a goldfish. Oh yeah, forget it, move on, right? Doesn't help to dwell on your mistakes. You want to forget it and move on. So that's really what he's doing. So he says, be a goldfish. And it's kind of funny because he says it to the rest of the team later, and they're like, what? And Sam explains, he means forget our mistakes. Oh, okay, type of thing. So how often are you in your career dwelling on that bad? Oh, I made that mistake. Oh, I shouldn't have sent that email. Oh, I should have sent that email, and I didn't, as opposed to learning from it, moving on, right? Because Holding on to it just drags us down. Last one. Every choice is a chance. And I love this saying. So the setup for this in the series is something about Ted comes out in the press, something that's embarrassing. And it comes out in the press and the players learn about it that way. And the coach comes out and he goes, look, guys, I have to apologize. I should have told you this myself. You shouldn't have heard this from the press. And the guys are like, don't worry about it, coach. We get your back. You know, optimism was infectious, right? And he says, no, I'm really sorry. Every choice is a chance. And I had a choice to show you I trust you. I had a chance through my choice to tell you this and know that you wouldn't think badly of me, right? Because so you think about that. Everything we do, every choice we make is a chance to show someone we trust them, we love them, we care about them, we're in this with them, we support them. Or it's also a chance to do the exact opposite, right? And we have to think about those things as we do it. And again, think about that bank account. Every choice you make that's a positive thing is putting positive things in that bank account, right? And that's really where you're going for. So every choice is a chance. So think about that in your career. You know, when you have a choice of something, are you using it for the right way? Are you using it to build trust? Are you using it to build relationships? Are you using it to grow? Are you using it to help someone else? Or is it all those other things? So if you learn nothing else, and this is the last one I've got, if you learn nothing else, learn this one from there. Every choice is a chance because you control it completely. Every choice you make is yours. And it's always a chance to do great things, do positive things. So with that, I am going to turn it back to Ashley to see if there were any questions that came up or any comments. Anything that, you know, if there was something, if you watch a show and you go, hey, this is the lesson I learned, I'd love to hear it. But other than that, I want to thank you all for paying attention and being with me tonight. And hopefully you enjoyed it and got some good information from it.
That was really good, Brian. I'm happy I took a chance on this program.
I'm happy as well.
Having never watched the show, I was like, I trust Brian, and people really like this show. So I don't know. I think it went really good though. It's kind of, I needed that. It's like a little pep talk. So those are very good points. If anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat. Otherwise, as I mentioned, this is recorded. So if you have anybody in your life that might be a Ted Lasso fan, or maybe starting a career or trying to get into a new field, you might forward it to them as a pep talk as well. Yeah, so you could look for that in your email or on the library's YouTube page, as well as our library. Well, I'd encourage you to look at the library calendar for upcoming events as well. And that's that. All right, Brian, thank you so much.
Ashley, are you going to send them that worksheet?
I sent, so we had a bunch of new ads today. I will forward the worksheet off to everybody tomorrow, but half of them got it today.
Okay.
So
on that worksheet, everyone, just so you know, it's got my email. You know, feel free to share any thoughts you have. Again, I take suggestions from anywhere. So anything you have to get better, and again, anything you said, hey, I got this out of it and I liked it. I see a question came in.
Yeah, it says, what do you think about Rebecca's management style?
You know, so Rebecca, for those of you, if you don't know, she is the owner of the club. She is that wife who kind of got it. Her management style in the first, I think it's 11 episodes, is horrible, right? And it's horrible intentionally. She's trying to destroy this club to kill her ex-husband. She knew he liked it. So she's trying to kill it. So obviously her manager style then goes, it's horrible. But you see, once she turns it around, you know, Ted Lasso has a huge impact on her because she starts to do things, and you see how she starts to stand up for the club in the second season, particularly when there's some controversies. You know, she stands up against the big rich owners, and they're like, no, I don't care. Right? She's do it. So her style switches throughout. But you could tell she becomes very much absorbed in everything he did. He really was infectious for her. But that's a great question, because as you watch the beginning, you don't like her at first. At least I didn't. But she becomes just a fabulous character towards the end.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to watch it. I promise. I promise I'll watch it now. So
I know where you work, so I will make sure that happens.
all right, everybody. Thanks again for attending, and thank you to Brian for hosting this and leading it. It was great. So we'll see you all next time. Have a great night.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.